And we are live. Welcome to Earth2 Comic-Cast, where I don't know what Mo says. Comic books are alive and heroes do dances. And tomorrow's the 21st, so it's a big day for Black people across the world.
Apparently, getting superpowers. I don't know what happens to mixed people like me, but I hope we get a little bit.
I get a little love.
We might not be alpha level mutants, but maybe we could be. I mean, omega level mutants, but maybe we could be alphas.
Just I'll be happy to be Jimmy Olsen if you let me. I'll run around and
you're my guy in the chair.
Yeah,
you're my guy in the chair. You're guy in the chair.
Acceptable. So anyways, we're here to talk about The Expanse, which, with all of the Mandalorian news might have been at least, missed by a lot of people. A lot of people maybe not even noticed that Expanse season 5 came out, and now they're done with Mandalorian. They're probably looking around like, oh crap, The Expanse is streaming season 5. And you know what? Amazon did a really special, precious thing to my heart, and they released this at midnight Eastern time rather than midnight Pacific time. So that people did not have to stay up, until East Coast 3 a.m. and West Coast till midnight to watch this thing. So that was pretty awesome. And then I watched the first 2 episodes when it launched, and then the last episode I watched, I had a great evening in which I watched the last episode of The Expanse, the recent episode of Discovery that was less good, and then the last episode of Mandalorian. So I got to watch 3 different sci-fi shows directly in order, all new content, and I can't think of the last time there was that much sci-fi available to me. So that was awesome.
You did a smart thing. You sandwiched it, right? You had 2 really yeah, Discovery in the middle.
That Discovery episode was bad, but that's not what we're reviewing today. We're reviewing The Expanse.
But what's funny? On the Discovery sites, there's lots of arguments about whether Discovery is good or anything like that. I just, as a thing, I put up, they're talking about The Expanse. It's like, well, Expanse is on a whole different level than Discovery writing. I got not one pushback.
Everyone knows. Like
everybody, yeah, man. Or as me and Chris call it, the Wire in space. Everybody compares this to Game of Thrones. It's really The Wire.
Hi, Isla. Sorry, my daughter is trying to say hi. All right.
Whoa.
Now you can leave. I know she's huge.
I know,
all right. She's 5, but she's also the height of a 8-year-old. So, all right.
You're back.
Yeah. So anyways, I thought, so some people, and by people I mean Mo, complained that the first episode was boring, but I thought that they did an excellent job bringing us back. In other words, sometimes some shows, I guess there's 2 ways to do the opening to a season. One way to open a season is just to pick up right exactly where you left off, like there was no break at all, right? Mm-hmm. Another way to open the season is to kind of bring everybody back up to speed. Where are all our characters? What are they up to? What's the deal? And I can understand why maybe the first episode was a little dry in that it didn't really move the plot forward in a lot of ways as much as it introduced what the plot would be for the season in a lot of ways. And this is kind of it kind of reminded me of the end of Lord of the Rings, of Fellowship of the Ring. Everybody's breaking off and splitting off and doing their own thing. What do you think of the first episode generally? And then we can kind of run through some of the details.
So I liked it. I thought that so far this season, especially that first episode, is what we really should have got last season for people getting introduced to the setting and the characters. Because like Lou, for example, he was at Comic-Con where they had the big setup and you could talk to Belters and he was as part of this plan or whatever. And so we watched the first episode of the last season, the first couple, and he was just like, I don't know what's going on. There's no real, and this one, you got the personalities of the characters. You got where all the I guess the settings that were going on, and you got the overall tone of what was going on in different settings, right? And I think that was important. And to me, they told us what was going to happen, because you set up with having Rosinante getting a tune-up, and
Right.
all that stuff was great. You got the setting of the belters. You also got a sense that the budget was here, because last time you felt like there was no budget last season.
Big time. Well, and I think the story also for last time was more confined, because we pretty much spend the entire season on one planet, and at one point we spend like half the season in a cave.
Yeah.
So like everything is very confined, and that hadn't really. There's no other season like that except the very first season where we're on Ceres. A lot of that episode is also kind of confined to Ceres, but like most of the Expanse is like out in the Expanse, out in space, and so we're back to a lot of that. So.
And we got a bunch of our big name characters, I guess, like they're more well known. So you got Fred Hampton back. You got I'm blanking. She was prime minister or whatever. I love her voice. She talks like she's a jazz singer and smokes 12 packs a day. I love it. But you got her back for more than just the scene. So
you mean are you talking about Avasarala?
Avasarala, yeah. And so you had all that, and like, because last season you felt like they could only get them for an episode or something. Like, I didn't know what was going on.
I don't know if it was budget though, as much as book or following the story. Because my understanding is that at that, and we haven't read the books, which I actually think is kind of cool. But my understanding is much of that book is just like on that planet, and even like the whole Bobby storyline, they just added in to have something for those characters to do during the last season, because they essentially don't even exist in that portion of the book.
Ray said that was actually the worst book that that they had or whatever, which to me is a shame. That's the one that people who probably never even saw The Expanse before, it went on Amazon, were introduced, because I enjoyed moments of it because I already knew the characters. You know what I mean? So it was interesting to me to see the characters interact and everything like that. But this felt like it's weird to say
more true to what the show is.
Right. But it's weird to call it filler though, because it was such, an alien artifact did get activated, but
it wasn't filler. But there's a lot of the way I thought about it is a lot of the plot of the last season could have actually been pretty much told in like 2, maybe 3 episodes. Rather than the whole season, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, totally. So this episode, there's a bunch of stuff that we start out with. We're going to run through this because we got 3 episodes real fast. But number 1 is Naomi, and kind of finds out about her son. That kind of happened at the end of the last season, but now she's like going to go get him, right? So we're introduced to her whole kind of focus and her going back to her son. What do you think about it? Right from the beginning, I think we all know it's a fool's errand, right? Her going after her son, after Philip.
Yeah, I'm interested to see more of the backstory about why she left. We're getting hints of it. We always... Sorry about that.
If we blew out your speakers, we apologize. We have children, and if you have children, you understand. And if you don't have children, one day you may understand.
Right. Especially if girls, you'll hear a higher pitch of tone than you've ever heard. So, but basically, dang it, I lost track of what we were talking about.
Naomi and her son.
Oh, yeah. So we already knew there was a mystery about her past in a way. In the first season, they asked how someone so skilled is on this kind of like 100-year-old water tugging vessel or whatever. From the first season, when they're asking why, because she's really skilled, yet she's on these kind of less than desirable jobs. I don't know. It's great that we're going to get more backstory to her. It's kind of interesting that she's probably connected with really powerful figures all her life at this point, right?
Yep.
And it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic between her and her son. And it was also really good writing that no, you can't come with me, Holden. Like,
yeah.
Like,
but also it was good writing that I don't want to say he understood, but like, I don't know. They could have gone for like super dumb melodrama, and Holden could have acted a very different way than he did in that situation. Like often happens in these shows, and he didn't. He kind of, I don't know. Their relationship looked more like an actual mature relationship between adults than I feel like I often see in TV.
a lot of shows they'll amp up the drama, and you're like, people really mature people wouldn't act like this, or like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, why are you
Yeah.
manufacturing it? And you can tell mostly he's alone, right? The band is all separated doing their own thing.
And he's feeling it too. He's like
Yeah.
really feeling it.
So he's almost looking for something to do, and it's
Yep.
kind of, it's an interesting place to put him in. It's interesting to put all the characters in where they're not in their comfort zones almost.
So the next thing we get introduced to at the beginning is Amos, and he's going to the moon, to Luna, and we even get later a really cool scene of them landing on the moon, which I just enjoyed. Sometimes the CGI on this shows itself, but I can see their heart behind it, and I almost don't even mind, because there's more like little detail and more heart in that CGI than some of the stuff that has like bigger budget in Discovery.
It's all well thought out. It's all well thought out. It's all layered. It's all, so you can see a bad CGI spaceship and go, all right, I don't know, why would it look like that? Why is it going on? Where you could tell in this world everything has a purpose, because it has to have a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing, the closest the Expanse reminds me of is this is this generation's Babylon 5 in a way, right? Babylon 5 did not have the budget of Star Trek or like Deep Space Nine, The Next Generation or whatever, and the CGI was always kind of like behind. I remember seeing how they were making it once. It was pretty much on, like, there wasn't any fancy computers involved.
Yeah.
And but everything was detailed. It was a reason why things were shaped a certain way. There was a reason why, like, this species had gravity plates. This species had to spin stuff to make gravity. So it had a depth to it, even though the graphics weren't that sharp. And in this, you get that everything has a purpose, from how you shower to how you land to how you eat, how you go to the bathroom. It's
those details really matter for sci-fi, in my opinion, because they're what make it believable that you're in this world, and they're kind of what differentiates sci-fi in a lot of ways from fantasy, because you feel like there's a like this could happen. Whereas fantasy, right from the start, listen, it's space magic. Even like Star Wars, like, it's space magic. This will never actually happen. Or like classic fantasy, a wizard did it. Like, this cannot happen. But the difference about sci-fi is when done well, you're looking at it and be like, whoa, that could be real. And that opens your brain to other concepts that can be brought in that you might be closed off to otherwise, I think. What do you think about Amos and his scene, both protecting those dudes just on the bunk and then like in the shower?
So, all right. So first, I think you're right about sci-fi and sci-fantasy, and I think people don't really get that a lot. And that's what Star Wars is. Star Wars is sci-fantasy, right?
Right.
And Star Trek has always been sci-fi, and I would think that that's a really weird line to write if you don't understand that, because it's the difference between my version of like Picard and Discovery now versus what it was before, or like Iron Man's armor used to be more tech, and now it's kind of like, this is magic. You made this armor magic at this point.
Yeah,
it's a strong line. It's a line to navigate. Like Amos is doing his Amos thing. He's lived by this code. He's taking more initiative by himself now as the seasons have gone on.
It used to be he would just attach himself to somebody else's code essentially. So
right.
In some ways, I felt like that scene was a reintroduction, like we were talking about, to new people, to who Amos is. But in another way, it's like a growth for him, because we haven't seen him really do a lot of moral things, period, independent. He's always like, Naomi, what should I do? Holden, what should I do? And he just does it. And he uses them as the compass. So it's actually a lot of character growth here.
And before, Amos had a thing where he said something like, there's three people in the world: the ones you protect, the ones you follow, and the ones you kill, or something like that, or something like in that thing. I think season 1 Amos, if they came in and they extorted the 2 belters for money but didn't say anything to him, he probably would have let it go. I got nothing to do with me. You know what I mean?
For sure.
In this one, he kind of expands his bubble a little bit, where, all right, this cabin, he said nothing about the rest of the cabins. He said, this cabin, no one's paying your insurance.
I don't want to see it. Don't let me see it.
I don't want to see it. I'm not going to ignore it. And again, that comes from his past of being a victim now, and how he's expressing how that trauma is informing his current mental health now, which he's probably the healthiest he's been in decades, right? There's also, it's really cool. Amos is the badass character that shows have, but done in a way that's really thoughtful. And, he's a better version of Wolverine. He's a better version of, every show has these badass characters but Amos is right. And it was also cool to go, I'm going to take a shower. He's like, you know what's going to happen in the shower, right? He's like, yeah, I just don't want to wait for them to come and try it. Like, and the fact that his ego is never in the way of him logically thinking of things, like how this is, I know how this is going to play out. There's no point in trying to avoid it, talk about it, or you guys, we don't have to do this type of thing. Let's just get it over with so I can go back to my bunk and, and go from that. And it's also how he interacts with Chrissy, and the fact of like just Amos is such an honest, like there's a point in the show where everybody's worried when they tell Amos that Holden and Naomi are together, and they're like, they're not sure how he's going to take it. And so Holden finally says it, and then he's like, oh yeah, I bet I knew when they're going to tell us. When did it happen? Yeah. And he's like, no man, it's cool. She's like a sister to me. I'm glad you guys are happy. I mean, I'd do her if she let me, but and then when they're actually with Chrissy, when she's like, well, this is for you telling me, teaching me how to walk in boots. And he is like, but don't talk to me like I was a future senator. I'm not your favorite stripper. And he's like, you could be both. That
was a crazy.
Yeah. So Amos is fun to watch, and they use him enough that because he isn't he's not the point of the show. He's a great add-on to the show.
But I think you bring up a good point is like a lot of times these brawler characters in shows narratively are not very interesting characters. And he's a really interesting character to watch because he has more depth than just the guy who can beat you up. So totally.
And I tell you, man, like I just wanted him to play When You Walk Through the Garden. Like this is just Baltimore, gentlemen. The God.
We haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there. All right. So then also we find Monica, which is that reporter from season 3, shows back up, and she's talking to Holden about how she's pretty sure there's still proto-molecule out there. Holden does a pretty good job of realizing she's up to her normal shit and kind of like not giving her anything. But she at least gets him to go and talk to Fred about it. And that's like a whole thing between him and Fred, and Holden's doing one character who has not grown a lot is Holden will forever, anytime, I think Holden needs the proto-molecule to be destroyed because he holds himself responsible for it. And so as long as there is proto-molecule that exists, he can't get past the fact that he has some culpability in it.
He can't help himself. He's the Peter Parker, great power comes great responsibility, or the Jack Shepherd from Lost. Like I want to jump off a bridge right now, but this guy's about to jump off a bridge. I gotta save him before I can kill myself. He can't help himself, and you can tell I'm fighting it. Like, look, we did our part. We're gonna just be whatever we're gonna be with our ship and our crew. Nope, we got to get involved in these larger things. And him coming to grasp of that. And one thing they're doing really well with this is they're showing how famous this crew is too. And how it affects how other people treat them, access. It doesn't necessarily make things easier for them, know. And
it makes it harder.
Yeah, and it puts them in a position where they have populist power, but they don't really have political positions, or they don't have
they're like celebrities.
Right, they're celebrities, and if they said something, it might change current. But like at the end of the day, Fred Hampton runs that station. At the end of the day, he's doing them a favor. And the new, I don't know if he's an engineer, what his position is, but the new guy that
the new security guy. He seems like a security guy.
No more freebies, no more like I don't owe y'all nothing. Which I'm interested to do with this character.
Well, it makes sense since he's a new guy too. He doesn't have this past relationship with them, so he's just like he don't care.
Right.
Right.
I'm looking at my bottom line. You taking my valuable people over here. The new character that she's actually working on the Rosinante. I think that's cool. I think it's great they're bringing these new characters in because we lost characters last season. I'm messing up his name, but the older Belter guy, the really hardcore one that died. So I'm glad they're bringing in new characters, and we're seeing how it's not clean, right? Everybody has these different political agendas and these different perspectives, and you're still trying to work things out. Because again, the biggest obstacle is humans communicating and working towards a common goal, and then even deciding what the best common goal is.
It's Ashford you're talking about, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep. Another key piece of information that comes out here is, I don't think we knew about this before. I guess maybe we saw it, but that when Holden goes through the rings, he senses that other alien force, the ones I think that built the constructs, and they're like getting angry. So like every time he goes through the rings, he can like feel their anger. So that's a thing, because that means the thing about Expanse is you got to pay attention for any clues like that, because they don't just give you exposition. Like they don't like be like, here's the aliens and here's how they work. That never happens. They just give you little clues here and there, and you got to like pull it together.
I think I remember him going through the gate and he having a different feeling than everybody else. I'd have to rewatch the scene.
Yeah.
But them going on what it means, and even just explaining, like, when you alter your brain, you can just see something a little differently. You can see the folds. I thought that was a great analogy. To they used to do it in Star Trek a lot, where you would compare what they're talking about to something else, so we can understand the concept if you didn't know about the concept. And that was a really great way of showing it. And also, it was really great that Fred Hampton didn't just believe him right away. Like, so you have brain damage and you think that helps your case. And I was talking to somebody else, and they was like, "Oh, you all these things she's going through, and you're not going to trust this stuff." Now, you can't. If you're in a position of leadership, there's so many things, there's so many people that you have to. You're responsible to your base. You're responsible to the people that want to take your power. You're responsible to all. You can't just. You need evidence and hard proof. I did this because it might not work out. And that's a really good thing they show on this, is that there's politics. Even if you're not a politician, if you're in a position of power or fame, there's still politics before you can really move. And they used to have, the Rocinante used to have the ability to move without being too entangled with those deep politics, and now they don't.
They don't, yeah, exactly. Everywhere they go, they create ripples, whether they like it or not, and so. And then we have Mars, and at Mars we have two things going on. So we have Bobby buying black market weapons, so kind of just continuing with, she's just gotten further down the stream from where we left her. And then we also have Alex showing up, and he shows up to his family, and they're like, just get out of here. And then Bobby shows up, and she's kind of like, just get out of here. So in a weird way, I think Alex expected something definitely from one of those two people, either his wife or from Bobby, and he didn't get it from either side. What do you think about all that?
I feel for Alex, right? It's your calling versus like, there's this whole song about I wanted to stay and raise family, but the call of the sea or something like that. And, he abandoned his family. So does it make Alex a bad guy? It might make him a bad father and a bad partner. Difficult decisions. And he accepts that, I deserve that. But I think he thought he was going to get a little comfort with Bobby. That was his crewmate, is his surrogate family in a way. And when he got shut down by that at the theme bar he was at,
that bar was another great example of lots of little details that we were talking about too.
Yeah, and I loved it. I want to just say, they said, "Hey, we need a bar for this scene," and the set designers was like, "All right, it's going to be a theme bar. What do we have? We have you know what, cowboy."
There were just great little details. Like, I noticed that when anybody walked in or out of the bar, there was like an automated greeting that would be like, "Adios, amigo." Like, I don't remember what it was, right? But like, just little details like that in the background. They didn't have to add. That's the stuff I'm missing in Star Trek right now. Yeah.
It gives the world mythos and depth. It makes it 3D in a way, right? This is the flair. This is the flair of this little restaurant. Also, the size of the cabins. Like, Bobby's apartment is not that big. Mars. One thing about Mars that I've never really got, and I wonder if the books explain this better, is why they're shrinking the military. If you're trying to claim more planets of like breathable oxygen out the ones that are, why is the military being disbanded? I've never understood that in this show.
Well, because the big thing is that they're supposed to be, it's supposed to be a parallel to the end of the Cold War, right? So you had this Cold War between the USSR and the United States, and then the Cold War ends and we get not really, but until Iraq happened, of 9/11 essentially, we started really, both sides started just getting rid of huge amounts of military force.
Oh, that makes
And so
sense because you're not fighting over the same little space, pretty much.
exactly. And so it's really about, and remember, like, there's that whole tragic story about how the original plan with Mars was for them to terraform the whole planet.
And
And then
now,
they put that all on hold because they went to war with Earth, the Cold War with Earth, and they put all that funding and resources into military instead. So
which I always liked that Mars, even though it didn't have as much resources, had the most advanced military because that's where they put all their budget. Their whole,
exactly.
again, the whole populace said, we're going to terraform. All right, now we're going to switch this all to defending our freedom. And so everybody's on board. Like everything we all do is to this call.
And that's been their whole purpose for like 2 generations now. And so now that's gone, it's like you can see the listlessness of everybody like trying to figure out what this means. And that way it's a lot like Russia, like the USSR. The Cold War had way more to do with the identity of the USSR than it had to do with American identity. Like we had lots of other stuff kind of going on, and it was kind of going on in the background. But the USSR is like everybody was part of that, right? Like that was an ever-present thing. And so
and I guess that's happened because that's where you get a lot of the arms deals and surplus military equipment getting sold to other places and stuff. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, Mars is always interesting to me. I like, again, we in this show we see the evolution of humans in 3 different types of categories, right? And pretty subspecies of each other if you really think about it. And seeing those cultural evolutions and physical evolutions of these characters and the benefits and the challenges that those represent. So I think Mars was great. I'm really interesting to see. Also, one thing I like about it is that nobody's really the bad guys. It's just people trying to survive the situation that's going on. So I don't even consider the people that are selling the arms as the bad guys. You know what I mean? They're just I thought my life was going to be this. I thought my security was this, but now we have now they're almost dealing with Earth is dealing with, right? Since the beginning of the series, Earth had a high unemployment rate, had a high things like that. Now Mars is going through this because they're not all jobs aren't really to support the military structure anymore. Right. So yeah, I'm always interested to see with Mars and how that works out with their colonization.
Yep. And then I kind of left this for the end because it connects left this for the end because even though it's the beginning, it connects to the end. And that is, we open with that science ship being attacked by Marcos, but then we end with Avasarala kind of realizing that happened. So in other words, or she becomes convinced that science vessel was not just randomly destroyed or killed by pirates, but rather that Marcos is behind it. And so that's kind of where like this episode ends. And that more connects purposely, I think, into what we're going to be talking about for the next 2 episodes. So just kind of, any thoughts on that? It was cold, man. They were cold.
Yeah, it's kind of those things of what do you do? Like you think you can negotiate, but they were dead no matter what.
Yeah, they were done.
I think we're talking more about the politics that she's dealing with. I'm going to call her Chrissy from now on. Chrissy's dealing with on the other side, and we got to see who was Fred Hampton's second in command? She's now
Naomi.
Not Naomi.
All right, sorry, not Naomi. Why am I forgetting her name too?
Me too. But we were seeing where she's at too, and how she's dealing with, I guess, kind of being a little warlord of her own territory.
Yep. It's Drummer, right? I don't know why I was thinking it's not Drummer, but it is Drummer, right?
Yeah, but they usually use her first name in the thing. But yeah. So we're seeing how she's dealing with it. And I don't remember, is this the episode where she finds her friend's ship, Amanda Ship, or is that next episode?
I think that's the next episode.
Oh, okay.
So, but we can jump right over to the next episode. So this episode, this episode opens with Kamina, that's her first name, with her in battle with the pirates, remember? So it opens with her with the pirates, and there's like the one ship, and they're like kind of negotiating, and then the second ship shows up and just ends things right away.
Yeah, that was badass. She's like, "Or you the story I'll tell to the next captain," and he's like, "All right, Bob." Like, that was cool. We also get to see the difference in their culture because they're used to such small quarters, like nudity and sex and things like that, and the relationships and stuff for the crew. It's really familial. And even it kind of reminds me of like how you read about pirate ships back in the day. Like we have this thing about him being the Lord, but he really wasn't. He was only really in command during combat, right? And raids. But other time that he had the same vote as anybody else in the crew. And it was really cool to just see that culture and how it played out. And the support system she's developed, you know.
Yeah, it was. I'm really enjoying. That's like a new kind of, I don't know, arc or place that we're at, a setting, if you will. That I'm really enjoying this season is Drummer and that crew, and just like I don't feel like we've gotten the separate life of a Belter. In other words, if we are just Belters in a Belter world, I don't think we've gotten that yet in Expanse. We've only kind of seen Belters in context with their dealing with Earthers and Martians, right? And so it's cool to kind of see how like comfortable and what their life is like, just, you know, out in the Expanse. Like it's awesome.
Right. We saw the Earth ships and it was very uniform with their thing. Even like I remember them saying when Holden was sleeping with one of his crewmates in the first season, and they were like, "Oh, you know, that's not allowed," right? Like things like that. And then you switch over to this ship. They're highly proficient. Like you can't say they're not, but they're also, you know, we're all in the same room. We're all naked. Like you sex or whatever. Like it's a different condition. This isn't them going to space. This is them being home. Like this is their.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and
often we've often only seen Belters almost in a adversarial, I don't want to say villainous, but like adversarial position. They're often the adversaries that we're dealing with. And a lot of the, I don't want to, I guess like the more accepting of Earthers and Martians they are, more like they are the hero characters we've dealt with. Here we got to see Belters just with Belters, and we see like, hey, when they're like with their own people, like their family, like it's all family, right?
We've seen assimilated Belters. We've seen Belters that have who I don't want to say civilized. What is it? They're culturally adapting.
Right.
They're coding to the life of non-Belters around them and stuff like that.
Exactly. So they live in a hybrid context more.
Right. And these are just Belters, right? Yeah. And now honestly, could you see Naomi living on a ship like this now? Like it'd be a
that's the thing.
You know she's had to, but this is a different type of context.
Well, and that's interesting you bring that up because it actually helps us understand the context that Naomi finds herself in. And we can jump to that. Because Naomi, is it in this episode that Naomi gets? Yeah, she shows up with her friends. Is that in this episode?
I want to say that's this episode, and Baltimore's this episode is the focus.
Baltimore is a big focus. So, well, I guess Naomi isn't really in this episode. I guess her story kind of keeps moving in the next episode. So then the other real big story, which takes up a large part of this episode, is Amos returns to Baltimore. Oh my gosh. So we're two people from Baltimore. Have you ever seen a city converted to the future that still looked so much like?
So I was pointing it out and I was like, that's the skyline. And it's like, it's about I was talking about that's the skyline. I was like, yeah, if you look, that's the we look when we were in college and they would have that dance, that year holiday party. It was at the Trade Center right there.
Yeah, totally.
Like we were like, yeah, that's Baltimore. And honestly, they could have attempted to like shine it up. But that felt like Baltimore.
No, everything felt like Baltimore, and it made me feel for the first time like every other sci-fi city I've ever seen. It's like they just took a city and like paved it over and built a new city in its place. Right. And this city looked like the city it had grown out of, if that makes sense. It still looked like the roots were Baltimore, and it was amazing. I mean,
I almost expected Omar coming. Look, and I'm gonna lie. When I was here, like I was like, man, y'all might just pay for the rights and got that. You walk through the Garden Wire intro because that's what all. And you know the writers was like, look, I don't care what the Wire character you get to be in this episode, but we need one character from the Wire in this episode.
I'm ready for the spin-off of this episode that's essentially the Wire set in Baltimore.
Right,
let's do it. Wire,
Corner Boys.
I don't know what year it is, but like Wire, I don't know, like 2100 or whatever. Let's do it.
Look, it had Corner Boys, it had corrupt officials.
I like that. It had like the projects, but they just added solar panels to the top. It was the same buildings. They're just like, we'll add solar panels. Now we don't have to pay for electricity.
even had the bars down at Fed Hill type of thing
Yeah,
going on, where it
yeah,
was like, those it's kind of weird part near Fed Hill where you get the upper class people kind of, or the middle class
yeah,
people, but you also got the people like you just drinking with a window outside to see the city, and that's where Amos was drinking.
yep.
Can you still, oh yeah, can you still hear me? So yeah, it was cool, but we start off with like Amos, the
It
game
was
is the game.
as small as it is. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out. Like the setting, like if you whatever your home city is, if you can imagine somebody taking the care to like carefully sci-fi that city, that's what this felt like for Baltimore.
And I've
Like
seen some other sci-fi things and some anime things, and they'll be like, "Oh, we're in Baltimore," but they'll show a car riding over hills and stuff, and it's like, "Where are you? Where
yeah,
are you?" So it
yeah,
was it was cool. Didn't have any Baltimore accents though.
that's true.
I was
That's
kind
true.
of, but I mean, is what it is.
Take what you
Uh,
get.
but Amos shows
Well,
up.
now it's kind of like it could be that accents are like less important cross Earth area and more. Now the context is like you have a Martian accent, you have a Belter accent, you have an Earther accent, right? Because
True.
accents also are really important for identifying your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my wife's a linguist, so there's things that she's brought up about that, and so maybe it's just that like language itself is adapted to the fact that like you talk like your people, and your people is no longer like Baltimore people; it's like Earth people.
And it could be we're so interconnected. Like now we're so interconnected now. So you project that into the future where me and you are now talking on different coasts. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
exactly.
So there could be a whole different type of accent that develops from.
But anyways, like just the care that was put into it. So Amos returns, and his mom has died, so that's why he's returning. And we find Charles, um, who is there, who I guess was like essentially they probably never got officially married, but essentially was like a husband to her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what do you think about that? That's a really interesting. You didn't know, at least I didn't know where we were about to go when they first started talking in that scene.
Yeah, the guy that plays Amos, he does really good that dead man stare on people, and he didn't know what, and we got a little bit more from Charles, who was the police chief from The Wire. And he explained what happened, which is the aneurysm, and then we actually we got hints about it, but we get confirmation of Amos's sexual and physical abuse that happened to him as a kid.
Yep.
And what I really liked is that Amos has been so open with stuff that's happened to him. For a second, he had a little bit of shame
Yeah.
of like he's like, oh, she did, and he's like, oh, just and I'm not even sure if he was ashamed of the sexual abuse versus the violence that he did. I'm not sure which that was. Um, and then I'm just saying like, so why are you leaving? And Amos is very like, because Amos is a smart character. He's very he's very aware of what's going on, but he can distill that all the way down to the core essence of it. Well, this is the happiest places. Why are you leaving? All right, stop packing.
Yeah.
And I like the questions he asked. Was she happy? And I like the answer that he gave. I don't know. I hope so. These are the best years of my life, and I try to make them the best years of her. And that was such great writing that you really wouldn't have got in other series.
Yeah. And also, again, we see that growth in Amos that he cares, and he's like, you can tell it means a lot to him that his mom had some period of happiness at all. And to the point that he's willing to act on it. And then he like goes
switch it up. He was able to switch it up from this intimidating dead man Amos stare to like,
yeah, that's what I mean.
He really cared about her.
Very you're like, is he about to beat this guy up? Like, I just didn't know where we were about to go for a moment there.
I think Amos is a really good bullshit detector, right? Yeah. And I think when he saw that guy had an honest, emotional moment, he was like, all right, he's somebody I should protect. Like he's somebody that I should protect. I'd like that T. T sounds nice, and I think that before this scene, we saw Amos see a boy with a bloody face and an older woman like going to one of the, cleaning them up. And so yeah, that like I said, that whole scene was great. Amos is one of those standout characters. Even though he's not the point of the show, he's a standout character in the show.
Yep. And then Amos goes out. It's a little bit later in this episode, but he goes outside and says
goes to the corner boy and says
he wants to meet with Eric.
Corner boy flashes the gun. Amos again. just matter of factly takes the gun, starts beating it. Another thing of great writing I like is the guy was like, "Please stop hitting me."
Yeah. You know what's great about Amos is he does the way he wins in all these confrontations is he crosses the line everybody assumes he's not going to cross. So this weird assumption, right? Of like you're not going to take this gun, you just take, like, you know what I mean? He acts before the opponent has a chance to react, and that's how he gets the upper hand.
So it's this prison guard used to instruct in Krav Maga, and he was talking about and I think we talked about this earlier, but like it was about really intent. You could take a 145-pound guy. If his intent is to kill you and your intent is to scare him, I would put my money on the guy's intent to kill you. Like if his mindset is this is already going to end in violence, like we're going to just cut past the words, and you're still in the intimidation phase of this, you're behind in the race, right? And Amos knew that it was going to get violent. He just needed these are the steps we're going through, and before you understand how serious this is, you're already on the ground saying, when did I start getting hit? Like, so Amos does the thing was like, I need a friend to go blah blah blah. Say that to Eric, that Amos Barton is here. Or is it Barton or Barton?
Yeah, Barton. Amos Barton. Yep.
Yeah, and Corey's like, yeah, of course. Like, okay, he'll kill you. I thought we were friends. And yeah. Oh, we also see something interesting in Baltimore too, where we see police drones, like drones flying over, which is very interesting to say too. And this, it was great to see that layer of corruption, because this corner boy, we saying he was in the corner, but he wasn't really on the corner. He was out in the middle of the street selling drugs.
No, yeah, he was just there was no
there's no fear about it.
That part of Baltimore has clearly just been like left to its own ends, and there's something to that, because there have been other times. There have been other times in Baltimore where it's been like that. So
yeah, I thought that interaction it was pure Amos, and then he goes to that restaurant again that reminds me of Fed Hill, and he sees the woman and the kid again. The guy comes and gets him. He does a really cool thing where he takes the glass, and the guy's looking at him like, puts it on the puts the ice in the napkin. The guy's like, folds it up and hands it, and that's it was like. No hard feelings, man. I just needed you to do this thing. Here, put the ice in your face.
Yeah, exactly. It was really good. And then we also have back on the station, Monica sends a message to Holden, and he goes looking for her, and her room's been trashed. So then there's that whole thing of like trying to find her, which was pretty. I don't know. It's your standard sci-fi hunt and search. There was a good moment where they like opened the wrong crate or whatever, but
I mean, she actually, she tried to get out and the air was leaking out, and it's a very careful situation to be in.
Yeah, that's a pretty great moment where she gets the door to budge, and then she's like, "Oh no!" and then she's like trying to stop it, and like the pressure is so hard it's making her finger bleed, and
she essentially died for all intents and purposes. And it was a good thing of like medical tech in the future of hyper or concentrated oxygenated blood. They pumped her full, and I was like, I don't know if that thing really exists, but that's an awesome concept. And to see how because medicine adapts to the environments that they're needed in, right? Like techniques and things like that, and wars and stuff like that. So that makes sense to have something like that for people who, all right. If you get them in this amount of time, we can still get blood to their brain, it was just a cool point. Cool point. And to see them going through it, and this being used for, and again, it happened because Holden can't just let things go, right? A lot of other characters have been like, I'm not dealing with. All right, fine, I'm gonna go to this place.
Yeah, like Monica screwed them over like multiple times. There was no reason for him to.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't the most interesting scene of the. I feel like those scenes are just really to get they're setting up stuff because Holden's there. We're setting up stuff for the plot push later.
Right. I agree. So I don't want to stick there too long. But then another one that again is like a setup for what's coming is Bobby shows basically Alex really pushes in on Bobby, and Bobby finally lays down. She stops kind of being a dick to him,
Right.
and shows him what she's working on for the black market. And Alex is pretty intrigued, but he's pretty confused about this, I don't know, top admiral or whatever being involved. He doesn't believe that could be right. So,
yeah, the admiral scene was really interesting to me.
Yeah, what do you think about? I think that actually happens in the next episode. But what do you think? It's like real early in the next episode.
Oh, is it? Then we don't got to get
into
it.
No. It's this episode. You're right. That they first meet. That he goes there.
Because Alex shows. I'm sorry, not Alex.
Bobby
shows Alex the weapon she's bought so far and who she's working for and how she can't trust her government. And it's kind of like Bobby. Remember the spy that was working for Chrissy in the first season?
Yep.
It's kind of like Bobby's taking on that role, but she's not comfortable in it, and she's not happy. She's not happy. And you took this person who could believe in something, who was part of a team and a military, and she knows she has to do it, but she's in a place that she doesn't feel clean.
Well, it's frustrating for her too, because she definitely, like, what is the word that he used? Like, she's like got Mars. She's Martian. Like, she's all in on Mars, right? She's very loyal to her people.
She's a patriot.
She's a patriot. That's a good way of putting it. So she's a patriot to Mars, and yet she has to act in this like spy fashion. But she has to act in this spy fashion not because she's betraying Martian values, but because the rest of Mars is essentially betraying Martian values. And so that's a really confusing place. Remember in Gundam Wing, like when they go to outer space and the colonies are like, "We don't want you."
Yeah.
And then they kind of like don't know who they are anymore, right? They don't have an identity. And Bobby is kind of like that. Like, she is all a patriot for Mars, but Mars itself doesn't want her kind anymore in a lot of ways. Like, they don't. Yeah.
Right. And if she was exposed, she'd be thought of a traitor for working for Earth.
Absolutely.
At the same time, she's trying to save a Mars that itself is now being disassembled, right, and being moved away. So it's a very interesting thing. And of course, we see the Chekhov's gun of the power armor. Like,
Oh yeah. You know she's getting back in that power armor. I love that Chekhov's gun. I saw that. I was like, that's right. You got some power armor.
Yep. And again, I like that they were consistent with the technology in this world. How Mars had really sophisticated stealth tech.
Yep.
And what's that used for? And again, we see that the political egos and snobbery, which happens in our own government a lot. And like I said, when I worked for when I worked in politics for that 1 year, like you see a lot of these backdoor stuff and these personality things that get in the way of just getting certain things done, like simple things done. And it's really disheartening. And we're getting kind of a 9/11 feel from this, right? The agencies are talking to each other. People like, oh, no, stay in your lane. And it's
well, you want to talk about that a little bit, because another scene that pops up here is Avasarala is on that conference call with all those military leaders and the new president or whatever of Earth, and we directly see those politics in play, right?
Mm-hmm. And they even say that she's treating you like this because of how you treated her when you were in power, right? So it's not.
She's right.
And you know, and her turnaround is, well, I made her stronger. Like, not
that's not a good turnaround. Yeah, which is good, because it's true, right? They could have like softened it and be like, oh no, she actually did, but no, she was totally, yeah, absolutely. And so, but the problem is that this is a very real, very credible, legit threat, and these politics. And a lot of times politics really does just come down to two people not liking each other, which is a thing like we got to understand, right? And so here we have two people who don't like each other, but lives are on the line because these two people can't get out of their own way to like look at what's going on for a moment, right?
Yeah, and it plays out all too often. I feel like again, nothing's a simple answer. Sometimes it comes down to just human beings being able to communicate. We have all these different ways of communication, from text to video calls and all this other stuff, but it still comes down to it. We're still the issue.
Yep.
And even that, who's going to get the blame? Because that's never going to be so clean when this happens, right? Like, So I like they're consistent with that. I like how she's still playing the game. I like how we're seeing how limited her power is, because we're used to her being
Yep.
such a wheeler and dealer of power, or behind the scenes,
Yep.
or even up front. And
And
she would
she's
tell Amos, like, if you
so
get locked up,
we feel her powerlessness along with her, right?
yeah,
Because we want her to have power to take action, because we even are more informed than she is on what's going on. And so it's good writing when you are on the journey with the character, and as frustrated as the character is acting on the screen, right?
mm-hmm. And we know that last time she acted knowing that that was going to cost her re-election, right?
Right.
So, and we often wonder why our politicians are worried so much about re-election versus doing the right things. And a lot of times in their mind is like, if I lose my power, I can never do any of the right things, right?
Right.
And it can come from a place of greed, but it also can come from a place of greater good balance and ego and all this other stuff.
Right.
And I remember it's an interesting thing that when Australia had their 2 school shootings or whatever, and then the party in power said, we're going to outlaw guns. We're going to lose the next election. We're probably going to lose. We're going to lose these races for the next 10 years, but it'll be safer. And I haven't read too many things in history where that actually happened.
Right.
And
right.
it's a I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just pointing out that someone making a decision knowing that that's going to cost them political power is a rare human thing.
Absolutely. And one thing that I want to tag on to this talk of Alistair Allah and the new president is the new president. We don't get any scenes with her really, other than this like conference call, but we feel her presence everywhere. Because remember, her big platform was to go colonize these colonies, and it's almost like there's a gold rush in every scene. Almost, it feels like there's an ad or something going on in the background that's connected to this huge gold rush of colonists going out to these new colony planets.
Come here, get a job. The streets are paved with gold type thing.
Exactly. And I also feel like in a worse written show, a lot of that would be exposition that a character is saying, instead of we know all that's going on without a single character needing to talk very much about it, because it's happening around our characters. So
right, it's like, again, if you came out and just said there's a gold rush, everybody's going, people,
yeah, exactly.
No, you see the ads, you see the immigrants, like, oh, hey, you're going here, we're going here, like like, and we hear that we can get jobs there, free oxygen, free water, like, you know, like and you see the politics of, oh, I can offer all these people opportunity and hope, and I can use that hope to spin into more political power. It'll probably be okay. It'll probably be safe, you know. So again, it gives a sense that this is a real world.
Yep.
With multiple layers, multiple players, and people caught up in the churn, as Amos says.
Yep. And then this episode ends with Amos. He's kind of like hanging out on a pier in Baltimore.
Oh, did you skip the brother? We skipped the brother.
The brother. You mean when he meets with that other guy?
Eric.
Oh yeah. I guess that does happen this episode. Yeah. Amos finds Eric. You're right.
Yeah. So Amos gets contacted. He has the guy to ICE. He sees the place where the woman and the kid with the bloody face, and they're not there this time. He walks in. There's this fortress like structure, and the door closes, and I guess the assistant goes, "You're wondering how you can get out of here, huh?" and my thought is, lady, you better be hoping he doesn't think he has to kill you to get out of here. Amos being very perceptive. You meet Eric. Eric pulls out a big gun and says, I told you not to come here. You got a new identity. You killed the old Amos so long ago. No one knew. No one even asked who kills him anymore for me instead of killing me. Why are you here?
This is one of my favorite interpersonal scenes ever in TV. I don't know how to explain it, but I love this scene so much because the stakes are both so high and so low at the same time. All Amos is trying to accomplish is for his like pseudo foster dad or whatever to have a place to live until he dies. That's like all he's trying to accomplish is this very minor thing, right? And yet the stakes are like at full, like somebody's gonna die level over this very minor thing.
Well, to go back to the Wire thing, so imagine Omar comes into your office. Imagine Omar didn't die. Spoiler:
Yep.
Omar didn't die, but somebody gave him a fake ID to get out of town, and he comes back into your office.
Yeah, exactly.
Why
Yeah.
is he here? He
Exactly.
You can
you expect the stakes to be extremely high. Like Eric expects like the stakes are high, and Amos is like, I literally just want this tiny thing. And there's that great moment where the gun is left on the table, and he turns around to pour a drink, and Amos is like, "You don't have to test me.
Yeah,
like, you don't have to test me."
And again, that's Amos being very precise. There's like 9 different types of intelligence, and Amos can read a situation and again break it all down to like, and he's so calm. And it's like, look, dude, I really just want this place. It also speaks to who Amos was before. We know he was doing extreme violence at a very young age. As muscle at a really young age. So the reputation that he gathered, I'm sure Eric was very nervous. From what I hear, like his the original Amos Burton's the one that like messed up his hand and gave him that lip. So so again, Amos breaks down the situation. Does the Amos think of this is really good hooch? I'm just gonna take this bottle. He says, "You've changed," kind of saying like you've gone soft. And what we know of Amos, he's not soft at all. But but he's not just killing or hurting people.
To a guy like Eric, he is soft, but he's actually in a way stronger. One thing I really love about this scene is this is hard to explain, but it showed the writers were willing to show constraint when the easy way out was to do another action scene. In other words, they could have had this end the same way it ended with some big overblown action sequence, and instead they trusted their actors and trusted their characters to create the drama and create the scene, and it showed restraint. It seems like in TV and even movies, anytime they have a reason to do action, they do action now, right? And so I thought it was just amazing to watch a scene like that at no point was a single bullet fired, at no point was a single punch thrown, and yet you felt all of the weight of what was going on kind of on a mind's eye level.
Well, it was tension built up without having to be physical, right? And the fact that this guy with this Baltimorean empire was nervous about Amos is a more badass scene than Amos killing 3 people or shooting or things like that. And also just that it was something simple of she loved him, which means I love him. She wouldn't want him sleeping on the streets, which means I don't want him sleeping on the streets. Right. And Eric going, and you could tell it wasn't even a second thought to Eric, but says, "Oh, she's dead. I guess I'll take this apartment back and use it as a crack house or something." Like it wasn't even a thought.
It wasn't even on his radar, and it was an easy thing to give up too. He's like, "Yeah, sure. That's if that's all it takes." Like he thinks he's getting off easy. Amos is getting what he wants. Like there was no reason for that. Once everybody knew what was going on, there was no reason for bullets to be fired, no reason for punches to be thrown. But it would have been really easy for the writers to have that happen anyways, just because ratings or whatever, like people want it. Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes people who've never been in a powerful position or felt powerful, they think that physical violence or physical strength of overpowering somebody else is strength. If that makes sense to me, what I'm saying?
It makes a lot of sense. But that just can't be right, because if that's right, then the people in physical power are constantly going to like be beat up. Right. Which is usually when you're gaining power, especially on a street level position, your goal is to no longer be the person getting beat up.
Right. So to have that and to show that was really good. They keep bringing up Amos getting arrested and his ID not working. So I'm not sure if that's on the table for a story element or not, or just to let us know, because he says he's never coming back, but he has one more stop. As you say. Oh, there's another line where Amos is leaving because that's all he wanted was the apartment. Takes the bottle of good hooch, and the guy says, "I love you, brother. I miss you. I do. But if you ever come back down the well again, I'm gonna put you down if you come to my city." And without telling me any more about their story, because we've seen so many other brotherhood stories from watch. It's Marlo and Stringer. We were young homeless people, or we were young street rats, and now we made it to. And we've seen that story a million times before in other media. You didn't need to tell us the whole story again, but we got the gist of it. We understood. Amos says, "It was good seeing you get it." Matter of factly, it was good seeing you get it.
And he raised, like, here was another opportunity where there could have been exposition, and they didn't do exposition, and that's what I like about The Expanse. It trusts the audience to be intelligent enough to, like, just understand what's going on.
And if you're watching The Expanse, probably mindless TV isn't your thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, isn't your only thing. I should say that.
Yep.
And
so, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, and the next time we see him, he's on the pier.
Yeah, so this episode ends with two things. It ends with Holden finding Monica, right? And then it ends with Amos on the pier and saying, "Hey, I got another person to meet." It sounds like not in Baltimore, right? So
we had an interesting scene flashback with Amos as a kid. We found out the kid that Amos keeps seeing was him and Monica. And it was also a really good line where she's talking to Amos. Apparently something just happened and Amos showed restraint at some point, but you could tell violence still happened and he hurt some people.
Oh, I love this line from his mom. Go on.
She goes, oh man, I'm gonna mess it up. But she pretty much says, "I'm not a good person, but how about I pretend to be old and wise?"
Yeah, she says, "I'm not a good mother, and maybe you're not a good son or something, but what if I pretend I'm a wise and good mother, and you can pretend to be?" So it's just a really
like us.
Yeah, I love that line too.
And again, the hints we got about Amos and her, we've gotten it for a minute of their relationship throughout the season, but the conversation with Charles, how also interesting, where I love this line where Charles says, "But she saved you from being used up, when the Johns don't want you and they were going to use you as muscle. She saved you." And he was like, "No one ever really saves anybody, but she taught me how to save myself." That's real key, right? So when people come to therapy, a lot of times they want you to hand them a magic key to or a magic tool to fix things. It's like, no, you learn how to improve your function yourself. There's no magic. I mean, people take pills or listen to self-help things and all, but it's how you can help yourself. That's what you're learning. And while it might not be long-term healthy, what Amos learned when he was young, it did help him survive those moments, right? Those street moments in that time with his life. And to see that evolution, and you can almost paint the backdrop of what happened between him and Eric and oh man, what was his mom's name again? I just said it.
I don't remember her name. Actually.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it. But anyway, and Amos having that
Monica.
flashback, Monica, and
so Monica's the girl in the. I don't remember his mom's name. I don't remember.
Oh man, I'm blanking. I'm so sorry. Huh?
It's all right. Go on.
Yeah, but then he's on the pier. We see Baltimore, and we see Baltimore with a launch pad, which makes sense for the harbor, right?
Yeah. Everything is it's so good. Baltimore is so, like, I want some sort of special feature where they just fly me through Baltimore of the future and, like, point out all the details that the set designers, like, I want that special feature.
And it wasn't clean. You know what I mean? It wasn't clean and shiny. It was Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
And then you had
Tatooine meets Baltimore, man.
Yeah.
It was
And then you had some kids, some inner city youth coming up. It was like, and again, this is our pier, right? And I had this mentality when I was younger too. Like, we don't own nothing, but this is ours, right? And Amos just goes, "No," and they're like, "What?" He's like, "No." and he decides he has to meet somebody else. So I'm curious who that is.
Yeah.
And but
I have no idea what else. Like, we don't even know of any other connections he has on Earth, really. I don't think so.
No. But I'm interested, right? And again, that's what the story should do. It should make you interested to see what's going to happen next.
Yep. All right. So episode 3. Oh man, episode 3. Now we're past kind of introductions, if you will. So episode 3 opens essentially with Avasarala she brings in that scientist. They bring in that scientist.
Yeah.
And kind of quiz him, and basically by the end of things, they know what's happening. Like, they definitely know that Marco is essentially sending a stealth asteroid at Earth right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've figured out how to put the pieces together. So that happens, and then right after that, we board Ashford's ship. Drummer does with her crew, and she finds that data core and listens to it, and we kind of hear essentially those Ashford's last words and how Marco is planning. So he doesn't say exactly what, but something big. So we kind of hit that 1-2 drum beat of like, Avasarala has figured out what's going on, and Drummer has figured out something big is going on. And then we have the asteroid like ticking down, headed towards Earth.
Yeah, and what's interesting is everybody knows this, right? So this is one of those things where they know what the plan is, but the red tape is stopping them from doing anything about it.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's the tension. That again, the issue is humans. And something that's really great. I remember this was a while ago, but somebody got me. I forget what we were talking about, but it was something about how space shows with just humans is kind of boring. Why can't you have aliens? But humans are complex and interesting in themselves when you get the different factions involved and things like that. And this shows it. You have characters, intelligent characters that know what the issue is. And they're still powerless to do anything about it because no one will listen or risk their job, right?
Well, the reason humans are interesting is because unlike, say, in Star Trek, there's no federation where they're all one thing. Everybody's still, it's more like real life where there's that great thing that we love about Star Trek where humans reached this kind of enlightenment and kind of came together and the federation forms and all. None of that happened in the Expanse. And so humans are still humans and politics are still politics. And so that's why you can have that depth and all that diversity within humans, even though it's sci-fi.
Right. And it makes attention. That's where the drama comes from. You don't need to manufacture fake romance where characters break up like 18 times in 6 seasons or mustache twirling, because no one's really the bad guy. The people in politics they're all playing the same game. We're in Baltimore. I know people get tired of this wire cut, but the game is the game. And they're
if you're gonna watch these streams, you need to know we're gonna talk about The Wire. We're gonna talk about Gundam Wing at least once an episode.
Yes. So they're all playing the game, right? And we actually see this, like, Romans played the game, right? They were trading power and using mercenaries and all this other stuff until Empire collapsed. We do it again. We have you have the corruption in like SSR or capitalism, corruption in America. Like everybody's playing this game for personal gain and personal power, maybe not meaning to slowly chip away at which, the foundation of what you want to say we're all protecting, but it happens. Yep. And again, when you look back at 9/11, you knew all these different agencies had these different reports and they weren't talking to each other, and there was like dick waving and all this other stuff. Yep. And you're like, but you all knew this was happening. You know what I mean?
It's exactly. It's even more real than Game of Thrones, because in Game of Thrones, ice zombies in the world of Game of Thrones, it was easy for the Southerners to be like, that's not real.
Right.
But this is something that even if it's 100% possible within their imagination that this is happening, and they still don't want to believe it's happening.
Well, also, we have a thing of, we believe a locked front door is security, right? So when people feel safe and they feel this won't happen here, or it happens other places, but it doesn't happen here.
Remember when America just totally felt like coronavirus was a foreign problem? Like we just had a sense that like, this is not our problem. Pandemics happen, but they don't happen here. And then it did.
Right. And it did. Or Pearl Harbor or 9/11 or anything. When people feel safe, there's a neighborhood in the suburbs of Baltimore where they were building these new houses, and the Raven players lived there. And if you went around the block, I wasn't casing places. Somebody I knew was moving into one of the houses, and there's these glass strips right next to the door where the door handle was. So there's a glass strip here and a door handle here. I remember thinking, man, it must nice to feel that safe, because it's like in your house. and when you have that security, look, I am not a criminal. I do not break into houses. I'm just
we just lived in places where we had to think about what a criminal would do.
Huh?
Yeah, we've just lived in places where we have to think about what a criminal would do to, like, you gotta think about it.
Yeah.
You're dumb if you don't think about it.
Right. Which is funny because now you're going to neighborhood, everybody's changed out their door. So in my head canon, you had foreign people, not foreign, like out of country, but like maybe didn't live in the state. Go and go like, oh, we're gonna build these houses. These houses are not like, and then people who actually come from Baltimore to go to the suburbs. Oh, no.
That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work.
I'm sure this looks pretty. I'm sure this is pretty on the blueprints, but no, sir. And that's what I feel like this is with the asteroid, right? Earth is safe. Yeah. They made a point to talk about for like all these seasons how, Earth, they have air, water, they have unemployment. Earth's problem is boredom, if anything else. Earth's problem is boredom.
Also, like, most of the belter drama happens from Mars past Mars. It's like almost everything we've watched in the show is Mars, the belt, and beyond the belt, right? Earth itself, with the exception of the one time that alien thing lands on Venus, is like kind of out of the scope of events. Like it's just in the same way that America feels distanced from the problems of Europe or Africa or Asia, right?
Right. And so it makes sense for them not to like take it, because it won't happen. It won't happen. It hasn't happened. So why would it happen? And also you have to filter in how many reports of terrorism or threats from belters that never materialize anywhere. How many you have to filter through because there's somebody out there on the front lines that stops it before it gets to that point.
Well, and I don't think Earth ever even considers belters a threat. Mars has been the threat, right?
And now it's neutralized, right?
Yep, exactly. So the next thing we kind of get to is Monica shows footage of all of those people being killed and something over the proto-molecule. Essentially, a scientist who used to work on the proto-molecule data is like kidnapped, right? And everybody around him is killed. And then she leaves because they won't basically give her anything. But then Holden goes off on Fred, like goes off.
Yeah. We said, and Fred Hamptons has always been a really interesting character because he's not a belter. He's actually the perpetrator of one of the well-known against belters. I've always found it interesting that he has a leadership in the OPA that he, but you can tell it's on a thread. It's it's almost like, what have you done for us lately type thing.
Yep.
Right. And now you had these loose clans of, I'm calling them clans, or factions of belters. Now they're unifying. Where does he fit to that? Because, it's almost,
in a lot of ways, a lot of his power just came from the Mormons. A lot of his power came from, I'm the guy that the Mormons trust to build the big shit.
So I was providing jobs. I was providing, all these things. Poor Mormons got screwed over. So how much of his power? And I have to imagine that a lot of the contracts they had probably didn't keep going because, look, you just stole from the Mormons. Like,
I never thought of that. Like, you steal from Mormons, I don't.
Yeah, right. But again, he made a decision to save lives, right? Because first he was going to sacrifice the ship, and then he came back and used it. So I don't know. I bet you the Mormons ain't getting a refund though. So he's in a really weird position, and now if you have
sorry, go on.
And now you have that he's an outsider, and even though in reality there is no alpha, beta, all that crap, that's all BS science. It didn't really happen. Belters are portrayed as a very alpha kind of society of who's the strongest leads type of thing. And it's probably more of a survival of the fittest thing because they had to. If you were strong enough to lead and go from that, it's all about survival. Well,
it seems like life expectancy is low too. So you're churning through leadership rapidly, right? And even like crew, everybody's death is just very present in a way that, when I lived in Uganda, you could kind of see that sometimes too, because death was just more common than it is in the US. And so it just changes your mindset when it's almost harder to build attachments and stuff like that, because death is just a thing that exists in the background.
was interesting. I brought it up before, but this is a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And the author of that book was talking about how he was talking to a guy after like Haiti became free and all this stuff. He was talking to a guy who was going to later become the president. And they had called technology cargo. And he was like, "Can I ask you something? Why is cargo? Why do y'all have so much cargo and we don't? Are y'all smarter than us?" And he was like, "No." And he was talking about how actually, from what I see, y'all have had to adapt to situations quicker. Y'all can adapt to more situations quicker than us because you have to survive and this. And he went through all these different attributes. And that's when the whole book's about why civilizations grow, technology and culture and stuff like that. But he was talking about how people in situations actually have more aptitudes or higher level aptitudes than people like maybe in our situation right now in our culture, because we don't have to, right? There's so many safety nets to protect you. And I am not anti-socialism. I'm just saying there's so many safety nets to protect you that there's a survival instinct that we don't have to develop versus you're a belter, you know, you have to survive. You have to, if you don't survive, and or your children have to survive, or your family line or your clan has to survive, and that's how it goes. Even the tattoos they keep around their neck is from they had like substandard spacesuits and would like burn their necks and stuff like that.
Exactly. So the helmet.
Right, and so they tattoo that on the neck, and so everything has a meaning and a remembrance, and that's their common cause is their tragedy. Like the Bajorans, like African Americans, like the Irish, their common cause is the tragedies they've had to endure and the strength they had to go to endure them. And it's very interesting how and now they have the numbers, the will, the power, and the unreliance of the resources of Earth.
Yes, so, and also Earth has to deal with them in a way they didn't have to, because if you want to get to the ring, you have to go through Belter space essentially, and the ring is the gold rush, right? It's the it's the thing, and so before everything kind of was just being brought back to Earth, like resources are being brought back to Earth. Now the place of resource is past the belt, right? In that ring.
There's a when I was in Rome last year, year before, or whatever, they would tell stories about like, oh, this is the red marble was brought from this country, or all these trees. Roman emperor saw them, took all the trees from that country. You can no longer find these trees there. They're all here because they provided free fruit for the people. So everything was imported to Rome from other places. And then at one point, when that stopped, is when Rome actually started to die because things were coming in, you know, and resources going out. And that dynamic changes, it upsets the political balance of things. And you have Earth Force who has they have derelict ships. Their military was never the best military. It was just the most prevalent, right? So they had more ships than Mars, but it took like 3 to 1 to take out a Mars ship. Like
season 2 or 3, we really saw that.
And you have a culture in Belters where they're all warriors. They're all fighters, you know, in some level or some capacity. So yeah, it's a shifted dynamics.
Remember back in season 1, maybe 2, they hid some of that proto-molecule
in the asteroid.
Yep. And that is what Fred got a hold of, right?
Right.
And then so that's kind of what so again, it all comes back to that moment, and that's probably why because Holden clearly feels really beholden to it. That's kind of funny. And that is because he's the one who kind of stashed that away rather than destroying it.
Right.
Or was it Naomi who stashed it away? I can't remember that.
Naomi lied to them and told
and
that's when she lost Amos as her Chewbacca, and he became Holden's Chewbacca.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it all goes back to that mistake that Holden made when he trusted
Naomi.
Yeah,
got it. Okay.
Did we get to Naomi going back to the Belters? Did we get to that?
That's the next thing. So then Naomi, she's kind of like, she goes to the bar, and 2 friends show up at the bar.
Well, first she gets scammed.
Yeah, she gets scammed, and just like, well, she has resources now, right?
Yeah. So she's been, I don't like using, but she's been cultured, right? So it's like you can never go home again, right? You can't, once you adapt to a certain way of living, a certain way of talking, you get that thing like, oh, you don't belong around here no more, kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
And so she had 2 friends to come and rescue her in a way, and talk about how you wouldn't have fell for that, and back in the day.
Yep. Yeah. Well, she's kind of weird too because she does have these immense. I mean, we don't know where all her resources are. Probably partially from like saving that planet and being part of that crew.
Yeah.
Um, like heck, maybe they took a cut of everything that planet now produces or whatever.
Well, we might think of ourselves. We're middle class, but if we go to some places.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the situation she's in, right? Is she like? I'm not saying she's upper class or anything, but like she has substantial resources in comparison to walking into that bar, to everybody else in the bar, and that also makes her a target. But it also means that for her, like the easy way out was for her to just pay it. But then she's not paying for things that what was the term in Game of Thrones? The blood.
Oh, did you play the
blood
iron
price?
or
The iron price? Yeah, exactly. The iron price. She's not up for the iron price anymore, right? And so she loses that respect from her friends when they walk up.
Yeah, and almost they're also looking at her like, "What? You're coming back, but you left. Not only did you left, you hooked up with an Earther and left, and flying a Mars ship. And that's and again, this is me and you experienced this. Like when you have friends from different backgrounds or different cultures, you get called on it a lot, right? People act like you're no longer a part, or you betrayed something, right? So it's kind of like Holden gets it for like, oh, so you're protecting the belt now, or you protected Mars, or Alex gets it from you're flying Mars technology with an Earther captain, or you know what I mean? Like, and again, this family they've made.
Well, it doesn't fit into the context of the world it exists in.
Right.
Yep. And so we'll get back to Naomi in a moment because really her important scene happens when she does meet up with her son. But then we get to Alex, and he finally has that drink with like the assistant, Emily, the assistant to the Admiral. And at first I was like, oh man, Alex is getting played.
Yeah.
But he did a good job of playing that long game.
He did. But she got a lot of information out of him. She got a lot of
information out of him, but I don't know that it wasn't information he wasn't willing to give up.
I don't know.
At the beginning, I was like, man, you're just getting pumped.
But he knew.
But by the end, I was like, oh, I think he knows what he's doing here.
No, he knew. He knew she wasn't really interested in him. I think the kiss surprised him no matter what. I mean, it must be good to be in important places to have important information.
he gave her, if he had not given up that information that I think he doesn't see as very valuable in the context of what he's trying to accomplish. If he had not given that up, there's no way she tells him what ship she's leaving on at the end, right? And so he played that well, and that he gave up so much to her that she felt compelled to give up even the most tiny fragment of information to him.
Right. So it'd be interesting if that plays out, whether that's a trap, whether she's playing the game more.
Yeah, it could totally. I thought about that too. That could be totally a trap.
Because he acts in a very clumsy way.
Yeah, he does.
I don't know. I like Alex. I like Alex.
He does not have the Amos street smart though, for sure. I mean, he showed a little bit of it here, but he definitely does not have that.
I think Alex sees the world a lot of times better than it is, and I admire characters like that. And even when thinking like, oh, I served with the Admiral, I can go.
Yeah, like no way this Admiral could be doing these things. Impossible.
Yeah, let me talk to him. He'll talk to me like, oh, what? I'm a traitor? Wait, what?
and that's also shown by, okay, so he thinks he's done. He goes back to his room, and really the game has just begun because that's when he gets attacked and injected the drugs, and like he's about to spill it all. In fact, he does spill Bobby's name, which is unfortunate. And then Bobby shows up and rescues him, and they tell a story to the cops, but Bobby had said earlier the cops are in on it, and Alex has spilled Bobby's name to these people, and they don't die, they leave with the cops.
Yeah, so I don't think that's over. It was also, I enjoy badass Bobby scenes.
Oh yeah. Bobby is my favorite badass. Yeah, for sure. So I love Amos too, but Bobby is my favorite.
I can't wait to her and Amos on the crew together.
Yeah, exactly.
Just doing the stuff. Which I hope she takes that power suit. They get back to the Rosinante. Like that's where I want this to end up with them.
Yeah, I think this season's going to be the season where they're all off on their own. But I think at the end of this season they'll probably come back together. That's my hope.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also because they're more vulnerable apart, right? They don't have their ship. So. They don't have the research. They don't have each other. So they're doing even Amos, who's the most independent at times, well, I guess physically independent, I feel a sense of vulnerability for him being off on his own and a sense of fear.
He's vulnerable to politics. His big vulnerability is politics.
And there's no one to tell him, don't do this right now. Right? There's no one to be like, Amos, don't kill a person. Because again, I feel like that the ID thing's going to come up to what they said is that the ID, his fake ID, because his real name is Timmy, we find out. His ID won't hold up on Earth if he gets scanned on Earth. And we've already know that his out, which you would assume would be his out, is Chrissy. She says she can't help. She doesn't have the power to help him anymore.
She doesn't have any power anymore. He kind of still thinks of Chrissy in her old role, but she doesn't have any power at this point.
Right. So
she has some resources. Like she probably has money to like get him to Baltimore and stuff like that, but she doesn't have like power.
Right. So it's no like I can erase this record or bypass these laws because she's in a vulnerable position herself. Because I imagine if she gets caught bypassing laws for him, that council that the prime minister and all them were on, like they're not gonna like they might be looking for an opportunity to get her out. So you have these characters that are in very vulnerable places. Bobby is physically tough, but emotionally she's a wreck. You know.
She's lost her complete identity.
Right. Holden, his power was in his crew, the loyalty of the crew he could trust. Now he's surrounded people he doesn't really trust, won't listen to him really. Naomi is doing what I like Naomi's character. Don't get me wrong. Naomi causes a lot more problems for herself. I guess they all do. To be fair, they all do. But
she often acts on her kind of like id. She kind of like, there's a lot of times where she does a thing where she thinks I can't live with myself if I don't do this thing, even though I know it's the wrong thing to do almost, if that makes sense. Like, a perfect example was hiding the protomolecule, right? Like that was a mistake.
Right.
And then we do get to that. So perfect timing to bring up Naomi. So then almost at the end of the episode, Naomi finally reunites with Philip. At first, Philip won't even talk to her. He just like walks right through the room essentially. And finally, she just keeps kind of escalating things to get a reaction out of him. And he starts talking to her. And she's like, I bought the ship I came on. That ship is yours. Just get out of here. Because she doesn't understand that Philip, well, she doesn't know him. That's, you know what, she doesn't know him, and she doesn't even do the work to get to know him, and he's as in on this thing as Marcos. Like Marco, like he is Marcos like second, and he's on board with the dream of like Belter, I don't know, like rule or independence, if you will, right, as Marcos is, and she doesn't know that. She thinks he's just like caught up in the game, in his father's game.
Well, it was an irrational thought, but it's an irrational thought that I can get behind, right? Because it's you're a parent, you loved your kid, you weren't, for whatever reason, you need to get away, and you fucked up, but you still want to give your kid a chance to live because you see where this is going. He's going to die. So it doesn't matter if you would, like, as parents, like, you might go through a lot, even if you don't think it's going to work, but you couldn't live with yourself. You didn't try, right? Like, so she goes through it. And I know I said she caused a lot of problems, but I understand this one, right? You know it's gonna fail, right? But she buys a ship, she offers it to him, but she hasn't been the time to get to know him. And from what we understand, this isn't like miscommunication or his dad talked bad about her. She left him, So
she has a culpability that she hasn't rectified.
Right. And so you go through that. And so everything else in this part, he has acceptance from his dad. He has a leadership position where he's respected. He has a cause to believe in, where from her, all he has is empty promises and showing what she cares now. So if anything, he came to yell at her, right?
Yeah. And so then we find Naomi like back on the ship, probably leaving, and then Philip shows up and like basically tases her and says, you know what, I'm actually going to take that ship and I'm going to take you with me. So we don't know where that's going to go, but Naomi's now kind of caught in Marcos's world, really, is what we know.
Yeah, and we also know that he's deeper because he blew up the station or the other ship and left a man behind and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
he is second in command, I think, in that whole operation.
Yeah, so you offering him a ship is nothing compared to the love of the parent that's been there, and the position of something to believe in the cause that he believes in, right? Or a position of power.
And he's
in the
probably
cause.
been like raised in that cause, right? Like he's 100% a true believer.
You're offering him dishonor at this point, and to run away like you ran away, and that's what kind of trade is that? And that's something she can't get, you know.
Yep. And then we get to the ending. So at the ending, Avasarala receives that update that basically no one believes her crazy conspiracy theory. He's like, I can't. He has a great line of like, I can't go any further with you or whatever. She leaves a message from her husband, and then she gets the message, and it's that forwarded message from Drummer about Marco. So she now listens to Marco, and Marco says like to Andrews or whatever that like you can't imagine, like you're not dreaming big enough, right? And then we just go down to Earth and do like a dude chilling on the beach.
Got some fishing goggles on. Like, just trying to enjoy probably his day off.
Something I want to mention is up until now, I feel like every time we've seen that little clock, it's been like 12 hours or 8 hours. Like we never got, usually on shows like this with a clock like that, they'll like draw that out and you'll be like 6 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours. You're like, how is all this stuff happening in like 2 hours? They didn't do that with this show. It's like the last time we saw that clock was like 8 or 10 hours, right? And then we're sitting on a beach and the asteroid hits.
Yeah.
And
I felt it, right? Because to me, it almost came out of like, I thought, we still had more time to save this or to do something. No.
Yeah, because that's how you see Avasarala. Now she has the evidence. Maybe she can take this evidence. You're like, there's hope of something getting through. Oh, no, it's too late. Like honestly, real politics, it's too late.
I got a Watchmen feel from this. Like when I was like, oh, well, you explained the plan. We're going to stop you. Stop me? No, I did this 45 minutes ago. like that's the feeling I got from this, and it was it was great. And this and even the destruction is going to be different. It's going to be, but they explained in one of the scenarios like what megaton of like.
Yeah, I can't remember what the megaton was. But it was big.
But it was big, and more than just the lives lost, the political turmoil
absolutely
is going to be interesting. I'm interested in if Chrissy gets blamed for this, or if she can use this to get more power, but more likely she gets thrown in the bus for this or a scapegoat.
Who knows?
Are all Belters are we at war now?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is, it was a line I liked from one of the earlier scenes. It was like, Fred, your problem is you think the underdog is the good guy. And I think in a broader context, there are no good or bad guys, but there's hurt and hurt people. You know what I mean? And so you have the Belters who it's kind of like Magneto, right? You're like, oh, Magneto, I can't fuck with you and everything, but damn, I understand.
Totally,
I understand.
That I was just like, oh, like when that asteroid hit, I was like, it's on now, and like it reset so many things, like the impact of the asteroid across everything going on in the solar system and beyond the solar system is going to be huge and crazy, and I just don't know. I think kind of talking on a meta level, like kind of wrapping things up too, like Amazon was so smart to like package these first 3 episodes together and just be like, here. Because you watch those 3 episodes as like one cohesive like story, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is the launching point of like something completely new for the Expanse. The Cold War is over. Active war of some sort is on now.
And between a faction you didn't really expect, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Mars is demilitarized, right? And that's gonna be interesting how they respond to this.
But it was Martian tech that made the asteroid get through Earth's defenses. So like everything's going to get scrambled.
Right. And so who gets blamed? The Belters United is going to be a really powerful force. They outnumber the Earth military at this point when it comes to ships. So it's almost the reverse. So now the Belters might have less advanced ships than Earth, but they have more, a lot more.
Right. Right.
And they have access to Martian tech, on the black market. Yep. You have the ice zombie meta plot of the aliens and the ring stuff that we still don't know anything about. And now you have a disorganized human factions, right? You have all these different factors going on.
You have the X factor of even just the colonies, and like the colonies are, if I'm correct, it's Earthers, Martians, and Belters all kind of out there.
Yeah, so what do they do? And if something happens to them, if they start disappearing or they start activating the other structures, all the governmental bodies are going to be busy fighting a war or protecting, or
so they're on their own.
Or as the Martian military was talking about, how do you control the access points to the portals, which I think is going to be a factor. Again, I feel like there's all these Chekhov's guns just placed places, and I'm just waiting for them to be fired.
This whole first 3 episodes was just nothing but Chekhov guns getting placed all over, and now it's like, okay, this is what this season's really about, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, like they could have dragged out that asteroid for like 2 or 3 more episodes. And the other thing is, Earth has had so many near misses before, right? And now it's like in what was like Harry Potter book 4 or whatever, when Voldemort finally actually does come back, and you're like, oh, like Voldemort is legit now, like he's back, right? Yeah. Like Earth got hit like by an asteroid, by Belters. It's real now.
Yeah, I think that it's on, right? We've had this tension going for a long time, for seasons, and now it's on. And who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, right?
And we would want in this moment all of our characters to be together on the ship, ready to like run to action to save the day, but they're all mixed up in their own personal shit.
In the different factions, right?
In different factions, in different places. Like, so that's not going to happen, right?
And I kind of feel like, if you think about it, how does Amos get back after an Earth terrorist attack, right? Yeah. I can't imagine. You know what? That might really plays in, because I can't imagine they'll probably be looking at IDs more closely. Naomi's kidnapped with the main faction, who's also connected to Holden, right? Yep. So, and then when it comes out that that's her son and that's her former lover or whatever,
so many things.
You have Holden by himself on Tycho, and you have Alex and Bobby in Mars, right? Who are connected to buying illegal Martian weapons on the black market. Yeah. So there's so many different ways this issue can go, that the tension is there, the story is there. This is the best sci-fi on television right now.
For sure. For
There's just different love. And for all my praise of Mandalorian and my orgasmic moment.
Don't get it wrong. Mandalorian was amazing, but if you want true sci-fi,
this is it. It's the Expanse.
And writing. So like Mandalorian, because they're kind of doing this great, I love it, like A-Team, Knight Rider, 80s action, episodic. Like, you don't need writing that's like gonna win any awards, but the Expanse is like, how many times were you like, I love this one line, or like the writers did this? Like, it's just on point at a level that is so rare on television, and I'm loving it. And it's a sci-fi show that's on point like that.
And the realism and the time and the extra money they must take to make the realism happen, just adds to the character. The world itself is a character, which it should be.
Yep.
And the fact that
there's a passion.
And everything makes sense. If you everything makes sense, right? You never got to go, why would somebody do that, or why would this? No, everything makes sense. Everything is plotted where you can see this would really happen. This is how humans react in the situation. So, I hope. Are we always gonna get multiple episodes?
No, it's one episode from here on out. One episode.
That's gonna be hard. That's gonna be hard. How many? You know how many episodes in a season?
I can't remember, but I can find that out for you. I'll find that out for you. But yeah, it's one episode. I think every Wednesday they go up.
Oh, is it Wednesday? Okay.
So, and thank you, Amazon. I hope you keep putting them up at 9 o'clock West Coast time, midnight East Coast time. Like, please, like streaming services, you got to know there's big fans like us who wait for the moment, right, for this stuff to go up. Why fight us? You know,
Right.
like, so yeah, it's a total of 10 episodes going through to February 3rd. So from here on out, it's one episode a week
So
going
that's
through
that's
February
a
3rd.
lot of land to cover for what we
Yep.
have left.
Yep.
And I think I read somewhere that the next season is the last season. So,
That was reported and then it got changed. So they said that and then they changed their mind. So I don't know.
So maybe the numbers will be great for hopefully because I
Please
need
tell your
time.
friends to watch the show. Like,
Yeah.
please. Because we want this show to do well.
Right. I don't know how to express what this show does.
It's not just that we need this show to do well so that it exists. We need this show to do well so that it encourages producers to make more shows like this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And because you don't need aliens and you can have, because this show has aliens in it, but you can make character moments, character driven sci-fi, right? It's not all about the tech. It's not all about the alien. This is character driven, right? And how humans are dealing with this situation in real ways, and taking the time to have these layers and these cast members and
a lot of this is what I feel like Star Trek has forgotten. Like, Star Trek used to be so character driven because they didn't have a budget, and now they have a budget and they've kind of lost. You know, in the last episode, I felt like we were getting beaten over the head with how important Giorgio is without feeling like she's all that important personally. It's because it was forced. Whereas if, I don't know who would be a comparable character on The Expanse, but like if Amos died, I would feel it, right? I would feel it.
So imagine Giorgio's send-off, which didn't really make sense for her relationship with the crew at that point. Like, that felt like a season 6 send-off or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine them saying it about Amos. You would feel it for Amos. Like, even Alex in I think the last episode was like, Bobby was apologizing to Alex, and he was like, Amos says worse shit than that to me 3 times a week. Right? And I know he take a bullet for me. You know, like you felt that because these were real characters where the Discovery feels like tropes, or feels like you're the badass, you're the this, you're the that, and it doesn't go any deeper than those.
Yes.
Though it doesn't go. It's 2D, where you have complex characters in The Expanse. You can almost guess what they would do in this situation. You just want to see them do it.
You know, the place that really hit home for me was there's that episode of Discovery where you have 2 brothers and they grew up together on the same planet and they have completely different accents and like speech styles.
Yes.
And at first I was like, why am I being so nitpicky? This is the dumb nitpicky thing. But then you watch The Expanse and you realize how important speech and how important The Expanse has made speech to the setting and story of the show.
Well, and even different belters and different belters fractions have different Creole they all speak, right? Yep. So it's so immersive in that way. It's the difference. It's what Jeremiah. It's what Tolkien. It's what Tolkien did for Lord of the Rings, where he gave everybody a language and all this other stuff. It gives another layer.
Well, Star Trek used to do that. Like, we have Klingon. We have, do you know what I mean? Like, that used to be part of what Trek did as well. So I don't know, something about that realization, the difference in how language is used between The Expanse and Discovery was a real contrast for me. And I don't mean to, like, I'm not trying to trash on Discovery. I just, when you watch, like I did, The Expanse and then Discovery and then Mandalorian, you really notice these things, right? Like in a 3-hour stint. And so, yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to do reviews with you. Hopefully we can get some other people in on here.
Yeah, but not me and you talk about Expanse. It's fun. because if we trashed on Discovery, this is what I kind of feel like. I feel like when we made those comparisons to Discovery before, people would get all pushback, and now I feel like people that we cast with are now kind of like, oh yeah. there's a big difference.
Two different ways they can react to that too. Anyway, yeah.
But okay. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And we'll see you hopefully next week or sometime. We'll try and do one good thing I think about doing some Expanse reviews. I don't see a lot of YouTubers doing Expanse reviews. Tons of people doing Mandalorian reviews, tons of people doing Discovery reviews, but the Expanse.
Well, I feel like the Expanse came out in a week where the biggest news was going to be the Mandalorian. Like no matter with that season, but you need it out there. And happy holidays. This is a great way to bring in the new year. And hell, man, I'm feeling happy. This is the happiest I've felt for sci-fi in a minute.
I know, and I'm so curious to see what happens next.
Yeah,
because also in the past Expanse, they just gave it to us all at once, and I both hate and love that now we are going to get trickle fed. So
yeah, give something to talk about. But
exactly.
But like I said, always a pleasure.
All right.
Here.
All right. Yeah. Good night.